Hey everybody, this is Andrew with mobileburn.com, and I've got a brand new phone. Well, technically it's not brand new because it's the Sony Xperia Z. You've seen it before, but what is new about it is it's coming to T-Mobile USA. It's an exclusive in the USA market for the first time, so it's new to us. Let's take a quick look in case you haven't seen the Xperia Z before. All it takes is a quick glance to see how the Xperia Z stands out from its competition. Now, when you look at the Samsung Galaxy S4, you see the edges are a little rounder. It's a glossy plastic structure. When you look at the HTC One, you see they favor metal. It's a little bit taller. You see you've got these big speakers on the front. Xperia Z went for something a little simpler. As far as the material, it's a glass back. It's reinforced, so it'll minimize drops, but it's not drop proof completely. And it's got the same another reinforced glass on the front. But on the frame, on the side, you have what's called a polyamide, and it's really nice to hold. It gives the phone a little bit more grip, and it feels comfortable when you're touching it with your fingers on the sides all the time, and it feels very comfortable. And that's one thing I would definitely say about the Xperia Z. It feels like a premium device. So you get that urge to, not mistreat it. Be gentle with it, caress it, love it. There are times that you want to caress the Sony Xperia Z, and there are other times you just want to chuck it against the wall. It's very much a love-hate relationship with the phone. Now, I love it because it's waterproof, so I can take this underwater up to a meter, and it'll last for up to 30 minutes. So I can be 3 feet underwater and it'll still work without issue when I come out of the water. Now the problem with that is in order to facilitate waterproofing, they had to do a couple of things. One of them was to put these little flaps on all the ports. Now I know it's not a huge problem, but it is annoying when you need to access your micro SD card. Now you might not need to do that all the time, but when you do, it's very annoying to have that there. When you need to access your headphone jack, which I use 3 to 4 times a day at a minimum, it gets a little bit annoying. That extra little step, it's not the biggest hurdle in the world, but it is something to consider. From a hardware perspective, it's otherwise not half bad. You've got your volume up and down button right here, and you have the power button, which is perfectly placed because whenever you need to access it, whether right-handed or left-handed, you should be okay. One problem for right-handed people is that they put the speaker right here. Now, I ran into a problem that when I hold the phone in portrait mode, I'm sitting there wondering, why is the audio sounding like that? And then I realized my hand is blocking it. And that's a big difference. So if you watch video like real quick like that, or if you hold video like this, you're gonna have to change your position because the speaker is right here, and that's kind of a disappointment. Other than that, it is good. It has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor. Now, it's running the Snapdragon S4 Pro from previous generation, so it's not running the same processor as the Optimus G Pro or the HTC One, so it's not exactly as fast as it, but it still holds its own. I didn't find any particular issues in tasks being slow or laborious at all. The only thing I noticed when I use the device is it's slow bringing up the multitasking menu. Other than that, when you look at the benchmarks, it's just right behind the Galaxy S4 and the HTC One, so it's not the fastest device out there, but it does moves swiftly, and you shouldn't have any issues when you're browsing the web, when you're looking at websites, when you're tweeting, when you're sending files, playing games. Everything should come through in okay speeds. Shouldn't be an issue. It's a very big device because it has a very big screen. It's a 5-inch display, LCD, and what a display it is. It's 1080p and it looks very good. Now with the Bravia engine, they've obviously made the brightness very good. It might not be as saturated as you'll see on some other devices, but the colors still look very nice when you look at them head on. The problem is you have to look at it head on, because if you veer a little bit to the wrong angle, you'll see that the colors suddenly lose intensity a lot, especially when you're watching YouTube. When you're watching on-device videos, it's not as bad, but when you watch streaming media, it gets pretty bad. Another issue, the outdoor visibility on this device is kind of piss poor. Even when I've set it to full brightness, when I'm out in the sun, I really have to squint and pay attention to what's going on because the display is so reflective. But otherwise, when you spend most of your time indoors, you're going to find a very good screen that you're not going to have any issues with, and it's going to look very good. I was pleasantly surprised by battery life on the Xperia Z because it has a feature called stamina mode. The way this works is it basically kills processes that run in the background while the phone is sleeping. So if you've ever charged your phone and plugged it out, notice that 30 minutes later, even when you don't use the phone, you lose like 10 or 15% of your energy. That's not going to happen here. It greatly increases your standby time, and that's great. Now, you can add apps to not be killed in the background. So if you want to keep getting your email, obviously you'd add Gmail. If you want to keep getting your T-Mobile alerts, you'd add that. But if later on you change your mind and say you don't want an app to work in the background when you don't use the phone, you can just disable that, or you can just add it back later at your convenience. Now, obviously, when you have a device this large, the screen's going to use up a lot of power. The mobile Bravia is going to use up a lot of power. But I still notice a decent amount of time listening to podcasts, playing games throughout the day. I was still able to get through a full day without having to recharge the device by the time I got home. So that's not really an issue. In terms of battery life, it's going to be above average of what you typically see on Android, and that's very good to know. But obviously, if you play a lot of games, if you browse the web a lot, that's going to eat into your battery. So if you watch a lot of video, that's definitely going to eat into your battery. So there are limitations on what it can do and how fast it can be. The Xperia Z software has concepts similar to other devices, but it's a little different because it's a little more to the point in terms of the presentation. When you look at the UI, you can see that it's just a plain white background, just a tiny touch of gradient, and it has nice balance of colors. This is the contact app, and you can see similar things in the dialer. You can see it's very simple, very to the point, and it's a little more understated than what you typically get. That kind of extends to the media apps as well. With the album, which is basically your photo and video viewer, you can connect it to Facebook or Picasa. You can see a grid of all the photos stored on your device. And it has nice little touches. For instance, when you do burst mode, it doesn't have 50 photos in there. You see all of them are grouped by this little big square right here. So I can tap on that square to see a larger image of all the photos taken whenever I do burst mode. So that's a nice little touch. Another touch that I really like is the Walkman. This is my favorite of all the built-in music apps that come with Android devices. I just love the simplicity of it. I love the appearance. It says, here are your albums. You can view them by album, by artist, by song, and it's very nice. And aside from that, in the pull-down menu, of course, you have your control system, so I can pause them from wherever I am. And the music app has something else that I really like called synths. These are basically a way to group all the music that you have stored according to category. For instance, if I want to relax, I can tap on the Relax Sense Me channel, and it has downbeat songs, slow tempo, nice relaxing music, and I can browse through it. It's not always the greatest. For instance, this isn't a very relaxing song, but it's in there. So it's not foolproof, but most of the time it does a pretty good job of creating playlists from the music that you have stored on your device. This is a T-Mobile Android device, so of course there are going to be some T-Mobile apps on here, including Mobile Hotspot in case you want to share your internet connection with some other devices. There's T-Mobile My Account, which is used to monitor your account, your minutes, your text messages. But in case you don't want to go into the app, you can actually get a daily reminder here. It tells you your minutes and messages. But keep in mind, this only updates once a day. I've actually had a very long conversation on the phone today, but that hasn't updated yet. You've got T-Mobile TV for live TV viewing and visual voicemail. One problem that I ran into with Sony is that there are a lot of apps here that don't really need to be here. You could just easily build them into other apps. For instance, there's a Play Memories online app. You can just build that into the gallery. Why do you need to have another app for that? There's also Social Life, which connects all of your social networks. You don't really need that. There's Sony Select, which is yet another place to get apps and games. And it's not better than Google Play, so you don't need that either. But there are some good things that they've built into the app. You've got a file manager that comes preloaded into the app. You have Office Suite that allows you to view Microsoft Office documents. If you want to edit documents, you're going to have to pay to upgrade to another version. But there are some nice things in here from Sony. Another nice one is Smart Connect. Smart Connect is cool because when you plug in certain things, like if I plug in a headphone jack, it knows to launch certain applications. You can also set it by according to date and time. You can have action. So it's kind of similar to Tasker, but this is a little easier to manage than Tasker. It's a little more easier to follow. The Xperia Z also chooses a different way to use multitasking. When you launch the multitasking app, you see on the right hand side, these are all the open applications that you have. And it's the same concept. You just swipe left to get rid of something. So that hasn't changed. But what is different is they have these little things called small apps. Basically, let's say you're in the browser and you need to calculate something. You can just go to the calculator they have built in instead of having to exit out. Other things that they have, you can start a timer, or you can even use your front-facing camera as a mirror. You might have noticed that these are one thing at a time, so it's not multitasking like you get with Samsung's multi-window or LG's Q-Slide apps. So that's one negative thing that I have to say about the way that the Xperia S handles multitasking. But you can resize the certain windows, and you can download more small apps simply by tapping the plus button, and you can have more installed or choose them from the Play Store. I mentioned that this is a T-Mobile phone, and yes, it is an LTE phone, but the problem is LTE is so limited in the United States right now that's really hard for me to test that. There isn't a place within 190 miles from me. But as you can see from the speed test, it is very fast still. It's an HSPA Plus phone. So even though I'm not getting LTE at the moment, I'm regularly getting speeds in the 9 to 17 range depending on what time of day I test this out. So if you're in the market for a fast phone, congratulations, you've got one depending on where you live. This is reliable as a 4G device. On the front, you have a 2 megapixel camera that does a good job. And on the back, you've got a 13 megapixel camera with flash. Now, when you look at the photo samples, and be sure to click the link below to see some more photos, you might notice that some of these images have a lot of grain to them. It's kind of hit or miss. When you're outside, a lot of times you get great photos, but even outdoors, you might run into some photos with some issues. When you're indoors, it tends to do okay, and you really have to play around with the settings more often than you hope. Sony tends to do a good job, but it's a little shaky here. Video, on the other hand, looks fantastic. There is anti-shake, but I chose to not use anti-shake because it still did a good job if I held still, and it has a great microphone for recording video, so I was surprised by how good the videos turned out. I didn't have any issues with that. When it comes to actually taking photos, the camera app has a lot of options. They have what's called Superior Auto, which is basically their auto mode. It does everything for you. It controls white balance, exposure. If you've got the flash on, it takes a flash photo. But you can switch between different modes, like normal, burst, which will take several shots at once. And the cool thing about this is it just keeps going. Unlike other ones that limit you to one shot or 20 shots or whatever, as long as you hold down on this button, it'll take hundreds of photos if you want to, and that's kind of cool. And you can actually change the resolution depending on how fast you want to go with it. Then you've got panorama, scene selection, all that stuff. It's very simple to choose which way you're going to go. But you can set it to always use Superior Auto, but if you're someone that really wants to gain control of better photos, you can turn the exposure settings on. You can change the white balance. You can turn HDR on or off. That works for both video and on pictures. Now, on video, I didn't really notice much of a difference, so I just disabled it. Under the right setting, it might make a difference, but it didn't for me. So let's recap. With the Xperia Z, you get a big, bright display. It even has the ultra-obsessive ability to let you control the white balance, and that's not something you see every day in smartphones. So it's a nice touch for the hardcore purists out there who want to get the screen just right to their likings. I was a little disappointed in the limited viewing angles, and viewing this phone outdoors is kind of challenging because it's not quite bright enough. When you're indoors, it's very bright. The mobile Bravia engine does a good job, and it also does a good job with colors. When it came to the camera, the videos were beautiful. Great microphone when recording videos as well. Photos were just good. The auto setting sometimes missed its mark, so photos came out a little grainy, but it did a very good job with macro shots, and it did a good job with the HDR mode. Overall, I'd say that the Sony Xperia Z is a good phone. So on the buy or pass side, I lean more towards the buy. The one problem with that is if you're someone who's been considering the HTC One, I personally feel the One is a little bit of a better phone, but if you're someone who favors a less intrusive software, you know, the One might make a little too many changes for your taste. Sony has something nice with the Jelly Bean powered Xperia Z software. It has some nice apps bundled in there for media, for personalization as well, and it also has some nice touches from T-Mobile, including your management of your account. Now, the LTE issue is going to be a problem in some areas, but as I showed you, there's still very solid and very fast HSPA+. So even if you don't have LTE in your backyard, you still might have solid 4G service. This is Andrew from mobileburn.com taking a look at the Sony Xperia Z. Be sure to click the link in the bottom to see more photos and see a full written review of this device. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, feel free to subscribe. Thanks for watching.